Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Spotlight on Security Tech Insights. My name is Shelley Calhoun Jones, and I'm a principal technologist here at Cohesity. Today, we're joined by Tyson Martin from AWS. Tyson, would you like to do an introduction?
Yeah, Shelley, thank you. I'd love to do an intro. My name is Tyson Martin, and I work for Amazon Web Services. I'm a principal C-suite and board advisor for all things technology and cybersecurity. Former CISO and CIO myself, and love to connect with AWS customers and with my friends that are CISOs and security professionals, and just find out what their needs are, and then help guide them through navigating the journey that they're in together with their organizations.
Tyson, it's wonderful to have you, and I'm real excited about the topic that we're going to be touching on today. For the audience, we're going to be introducing you to the concept of opportunity risk and how it can help an organization's broader cyber risk strategy. In particular, it helps organizations with a balanced approach where you can mitigate cyber threats and recognize and seize growth opportunities. So it's a paradigm shift. It really helps protect your systems while exploring ways to innovate and grow instead of letting the fear of cyber threats hold you back. Tyson, can you share some examples of how AWS is helping organizations take advantage of emerging technologies while balancing risk?
Yeah, you bet. Technology is a two-edged sword, right? And using technology is both a double-edged sword. So if you don't use it, it has blessings. And if you do use it, it has blessings. And if you don't use it, it has curses. And if you don't use it, it has blessings, right? And in my time here at AWS, we spent quite a bit of time teaching and helping our customers and to see a clear journey through how they can create action plans and take steps where they can leverage this idea of opportunity risk that you mentioned just a moment ago. The idea of saying, hey, there's opportunities, and if you don't seize those opportunities, there's risk associated with those. Just like if you do the wrong thing with technology, there's risks associated with that. Right? It's part of this holistic risk management process, knowing what you sacrifice if you don't. And life, just like for all of us, life is about the choices that we make, and business is all about the choices that we make. Right? If I decide to be to go out and be a ski bum for the first 30 years of my life, there's going to be things that I won't be able to do when I'm 35, right? And so we need to look at the choices that our businesses have made already, and then the choices that our businesses need to make in the future, and then ensure that our culture then supports and the foundation that we have supports being who we want to be and doing what we want to do, right? And so we feel, and the way we break this apart, or I break this apart mentally, is this idea of opportunity risk, and the responsibility for this is applicable at all levels throughout an organization. It's not just the job of me, as in my past CISO or CIO spot, or being a board member for if you're a board member for a publicly traded company, a privately traded company, or a nonprofit company. It's all levels, right? So a board of directors has a responsibility for this, and it's unique to them. A senior management team, right? An operational management team, a team of leaders and supervisors, individual contributors and staff inside of organizations, and then advisory consultants, and advisors and consultative roles within an organization come to the table with different parts and pieces to this, and you can see how they fit together, right? And somebody's going to be an expert in something very niche and unique for a company. Might be that advisory person that the organization brings in, right? But a board member is going to provide oversight and governance for where an organization wants to go, who they want to be when they use that technology. And so that's kind of what we're trying to. That's really at the DNA of AWS, right? The reason why we went from being Amazon.com to being a grocer to being a technology company to being a video company is because we saw opportunities and we had the core fundamental capabilities to then be able to exploit those ideas, that creativity, seize those opportunities. It's a very, very powerful idea. And I'm not saying we're the best at it or the only ones that are doing it, but I'm passionate about that, right? And I think we've all seen the results of organizations that have failed to adopt business enabling technology, right? And then on the flip side, we've seen organizations that have really, really done a good job at embracing those technologies. So if you think about the hotel world, right? How many hotel rooms does hotel chain A have versus Airbnb, for example, right? And how quickly did Airbnb go from having over 1 million rooms to a legacy hotel provider, right? Video, right? If we think about it, we used to go to a video store and rent a video, right? And then it became, mail order, and then it became streaming to our homes. There's names that have been displaced in that video space. Same thing with photography, right? Big names in photography missed the bandwagon on certain things. And most of us don't have a camera that we carry around. We have a digital phone. I mean, a phone, a mobile phone, right? And those types of transformations are happening in retail, as I already mentioned, with what we're doing at Amazon.com. And then audio, right? Podcasts, music. The music industry has been, completely flipped over. And so question is what made those that were disrupted become disrupted? And then what's made those that were disruptors become disruptors, right? And I think that's a really powerful thing. And as security practitioners, we're at the heart of that. We're the beating heart and soul of being able to say, yes, I can support running that fast, or no, I can't support it because my heart is too weak, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important thing. And so you asked about kind of, I think, and showing an example of how AWS wants to promote that would be, how do we empower our customers and share the knowledge, the things that we have, right? The things that we've learned. And so one would be, so if you look at a newer topic, which would be, AI and ML or generative AI as a more narrower subject. We're releasing guidance. We've got a guide called Transforming Responsible AI from Theory into Practice, right? And that then gives you guidance that says, here's what a board should be looking at. Here's what a management team should be looking at. Here's what, core individual contributors should be looking at. And then here's what a strategy looks like. And here's what a roadmap looks like for those elements. And what does it look like to use generative AI responsibly?
Yeah.
What core elements should be a part of that? So I think that's an example. So
that's a really good point that you bring around the conversation of AI within the security community, because I know that a lot of organizations are looking for ways to make sure that they're using AI responsibly, that they're using the right framework when incorporating it into their technologies. And I also love the point that you mentioned about the strategic thinking, not just at a security leadership level, but also it trickles down to the security practitioner. So those are all really good points that you bring to the table, Tyson. Just to kind of follow up on that question, how do organizations that you work with effectively manage and reduce cyber risk without reducing that innovation piece and missing out on new opportunities? I know we mentioned AI, but can you think of any other examples of how a business could achieve this type of balance?
Yeah. So first, just, not every one of my questions, but the first question was, I think, mentally a little bit for me to unpack, right?
Yeah.
That's quite a bit. So I apologize for that. With that being said, I think that teed up some important things that I think will naturally come about as we discuss. So yes, to your question. So to me, as a security practitioner, as a security leader, and then as a business, what we find is important is that whatever role you sit in, and whoever you influence, you need to determine if your quest is just to be a enabler or in the role of hindering, right? And then if you want to be the enabler, right? I think about it like, the Jedi and the Sith, right? In the world of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It takes some foundational things to ensure that you stay on the good side, right? And so first determining, do we want to hinder or do we want to or enable with this thing that we have, this skill that we have, okay?
Right.
And then to enable this, then it takes a lot for us as security practitioners. We have to understand the goals and the challenges of other departments and other groups, right?
Right.
Our peers across a business, those that have different perspectives, right? We are all geeks away, and a financial team is a geek in things that I don't necessarily understand always, but I need to understand that. And then I need to ensure that I'm there to support that, right? And then I need to learn how to identify risk areas where we're at today, right? And communicate how they will slow down our business. So then I can get support as to remediate those, so then I don't have to be the hinderer, I can be the enabler, right? So I think forward thinking and looking at that, and then treat those things and communicate those things like they're investments in the business. So if I can say, hey, this could stop us from, rapidly responding to the needs of our customers during the holiday season at our peak, right? And I'm going to have to say no to you as a business owner because I understand what you're looking to accomplish. And then your goal is to increase profitability or revenue by X percentage. I won't be able to do that if this is not in place, right?
Right.
And I think that's important. So I think fighting for a solution to improve the problems of others and to change the things that you need that today would require you to say no is very, very, very important. It's about proactivity. It's about understanding. And then another piece to that puzzle, and to additionally respond to your question is we got to truly share the responsibility of ownership for the management and of risk inside of our organizations, right? And that's a big cultural change, in my opinion, right? It is I like being the person that everybody comes to and sees as the guru or the whisperer of things like cybersecurity, right? That's natural. A heart surgeon, probably wants people to come and say, can you save my life? Can you operate on my heart? Right. But this just like it's all of our responsibilities to put on a safety belt when we get into our vehicles, to use our signals, to ensure that our brake lights are working and our headlights are working. And then that we're within our risk tolerances of abiding by the rules of the road. That's how I believe that if we're going to be successful in accomplishing this thing we call cybersecurity inside of businesses, it needs to be shared in the appropriate way, right? We do not ask the public to pave the roads. We don't ask them to put up the guardrails, that type of thing. We have experts that do those things. So we need to share responsibility properly so it becomes a part of a culture of our organizations. And then lastly, I think is another important piece is ensuring that your partners are sharing your responsibility with you as well. Right. So if you're outsourcing something to somebody else because that's their core competency and you don't want it to be your own, we use AWS, for example, whatever it is that you're trusting us with, how do you make sure we're doing what we should be doing? And you can hold us accountable to that. And one way that we've done that, done that at AWS, and this is beneficial for the Cohesity relationship as well, is Cohesity. If Cohesity builds together with AWS, you know what you're getting, right? You don't have to take care of X, Y, and Z, and you can take care of things that AWS doesn't have the focus for, doesn't have the desire to do, maybe doesn't have the expertise in, right? That type of thing. And so expecting from your partners a clear and transparent shared responsibility model that you can understand. And then you can say, okay, inside of our organization, we're covering these things. AWS and Cohesity are covering these other things. And that's a proactive relationship. Your partners need to care about your success as much as you care about your success. I think is very, very important.
Not only that, but it gives team members the ability to focus more on other critical business aspects. And also gives you the ability to kind of map out your topology and identify critical workloads, which could be on-prem, which could already be in the cloud, but you have a way to quantify this in such a way that you can really explain it succinctly to a broad audience. So I really like this framework that you're describing, Tyson. I think it's a really great approach for a lot of different companies out there. To just kind of follow up on that partnership that you mentioned, I know that Cohesity, they play a critical role in helping organizations mitigate their risk through data security, backup, and recovery solutions. The idea is that we help organizations protect their most critical asset, which is data. Based on your experience, how does the partnership with AWS's secure infrastructure enhance our effectiveness in safeguarding data in the cloud?
Yeah, I think it's really simple, but I'd also like to then illustrate that with an example that I've seen myself, right? That I think is a masterful example of understanding opportunity risk, right? And then leveraging the power of Cohesity and what you've done today so far with AWS to accomplish it. So to start with, I think Cohesity and AWS, like I talked about, are sharing responsibilities with each other to reduce that burden from customers and do it better than possibly a customer could by themselves because it's not their focus area, right? And so we build off of one another's strengths. So we offer the secure infrastructure that supports your solutions, and then you've created that robust layered approach to protecting data, right? In a creative way. An example of this I've seen is multi-billion-dollar-a-year company, right? Technology came. We spoke with the technology team, and they were looking to just replace a end-of-life backup solution, right? Things grow old, especially when it was very hardware-centric and sat in a data center, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing. And they just needed more space to back up to, and they needed to be able to recover faster, right? They'd had a security event, and they realized really quickly that they just hadn't invested enough into it. So they had received funding for that. And so what we did was, I think it's important to ask, you don't want to be a nosy partner, right? But you do want to understand, okay, if that's all you're looking for, you could do this many, many, many ways. But we think you can get more value out of this investment that you're making. So it's not just a bunch of disks that you're pointing something to and that just stores data, right? And so what we did was we kind of leaned in a little bit more and learned the backup was for everything, but it included their critical application, right? A critical business application that was having some problems. It was a legacy application, right? And the database, as we see is a lot in organizations, the database was growing out of control, right? They didn't have processes for data hygiene, for retention periods and that type of thing. It was just store it as much as you can, and we'll figure out that later, right? So what happened is that in a legacy application, a lot of times you can't back up a legacy application when there's current IO or IOPS, right? Input and output to the database. So the only time that they could run backups were in the evenings, right? Very, very, very common. And so you're not getting incremental backups. So guess what happens? You lose data at an hour before the backup happens, right? Or something happens. You lose an entire day's worth of transactions and all the work that's been done and the interaction that you've had with customers and so forth, right? Another thing is they couldn't run reports from this data where there was current load on the database as well, right? So you have now two important elements, or three important elements: operating the business, running backup, and running reports. So then you can get insights to say, what do we need to do better tomorrow, so forth and so on, that were conflicting with one another, right? And so time was running out. We learned in the evening times, backups were taking longer than they should have because the database had grown so much. And then reporting had taken longer. And so they would conflict. And when they conflicted, backups would fail, report jobs would fail, and then it would extend into the hours of when the organization opened, and key functionality for that business would be unavailable. Right. So we proposed, what if we could fix the things that they mentioned originally, but also fix the other concerns? What if reporting could be near real time, right? Yeah. You could do it every day, every 15 minutes or whatever it may be. What if backup could be, on the minute type of thing, not on the day type of backup, right? That type of thing. Then the organization can start to say, what can we do with access to this data more readily, right? That type of thing. And so we explain this idea of opportunity risk to the team, and then that the same investment that they were planning on making, but together with, a solution, by Cohesity, could open up totally new doors for the organization, right? So you're not talking about spending any more money, but they would have the opportunity to say, this was in a single data center, for example, and the backup was in the same data center, the same rack, right? That type of thing, or possibly the same row, right? To then say, what if we could replicate that data into a cloud provider and have a warm site or a cold site in the cloud provider, right?
Yes.
If everything did go badly, right? And then they could diversify how data was processed, how data was backed up, where data was stored, so forth and so on. And I think that's the power that you get to see with a solution like Cohesity for the world, is it opens up opportunities, right? And you don't have to say no. What they had been saying was, we can't run backups more frequently. We can't run reports more frequently. The application has to be upgraded. And as we know, with large, key systems like these, it's going to take a long time, and the data must be archived. And it was pointing at somebody else as the problem, versus looking at a larger holistic solution that then would say, and then there's a trade-off. We have to still do these things like this upgrade and this archiving process, but at the same time, I can bring you value today. And that's very powerful.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you were able to solve multiple problems with this approach, which is always a win, especially for organizations that could be in the middle of their multi-year cloud journey. They may not be fully ready to, re-architect or refactor a particular workload, but they can at least get it to a point where they can drive business, but also get that enhanced data security. That's a really good example there, Tyson. Just kind of on the note of security, we've seen a lot of changes in the threat landscape over the last couple of years. We've seen threats becoming more complex, more frequent. From a board member and a C-suite perspective, how can we provide effective governance and accountability in this evolving threat landscape?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'm going to guess that everybody that listens is not a board member, right? And I get to interact with several boards, and I do that. And I started doing that because I wanted to understand, if you have in an organization, who provides the most oversight, the most governance, and holds the organization accountable. Even the CEO, right? It's the board. And so that's what kind of shifted my approach and said, hey, I need to make sure I can speak that language. I can understand that perspective, right? If I talk about building relationships and understanding, I need to do it holistically, right? From the top, from an organizational structure, all the way to the bottom of an organizational structure. And so what we're seeing, so I was just with 1,600 board members from organizations all over some of the largest organizations in the United States at at an event, and got to interact with them and share my perspective and listen to their perspective and learn about things that I've never thought about before, right? Like, investors that group up and, try to hold a board accountable, right? That type of thing. Everybody has a bigger fish, right? So boards today are starting to play a more active role in cybersecurity governance and oversight. That's where their job is, right? There's this adage that one of my friends in the board space, I think he canned the phrase. It says nose in, nose in, hands out, right? And so what that means is you're looking for something that smells fishy, right? But you're not putting your hands on to make changes, right, to the environment. And so what their job is to say, you've told us as a business this is where we're going, and we've contributed our perspective to that, and we agree with it. And now we want you to prove to us that that's where we're going, and then we want to provide oversight and course correction to that. So that's kind of governance and oversight. And then, and that's particularly important from a board when it comes to regulatory compliance, financial impacts, and business alignment, right? So if you're a publicly traded company or you're an organization that's invested by private equity or venture funds, one body that's going to oversee you and hold you accountable is going to be the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States, right? And the Securities and Exchange Commission says it is the responsibility of the board to understand and have a strategy and a risk management process. And then if you do have an event that impacts your organization financially in a material manner, you need to notify within a very short time period as a board. That's your responsibility. And if you can't, you're held personally liable as a board member, okay? So AWS, we're partnering with different organizations that board members belong to, where board members go to get insights, to get educated, and to have a community. The National Association of Corporate Directors is a very large organization in the United States. There's one called the Digital Directors Network, very technology-focused organization. Is helping organizations and their members to elevate the way the boards and board members think about the subjects of technology, cybersecurity, risk management, compliance, and those types of things. And so AWS, as a member of those organizations and also individually, is helping to create and refine tools and frameworks which help boards and management teams to gain real-time visibility into security compliance metrics, and then informing or enabling them to make informed strategic decisions, right? And so the role of board members that they're playing in technology and cyber risk is changing very, very, very rapidly. So, but we believe that building a resilient culture, it goes beyond technology, right? And so that's why we're involved in the people side of things. And so it's about, fostering cultures of continuous improvement, and boards need to be there to promote resilience by regularly conducting, cyber assessments, providing transparent communications, and then encouraging continuous learning and that investment in that, right? And so AWS is helping by, we have security workshops that we provide to customers and prospective customers. We have security conferences where we bring those types of workshops. We have compliance workshops where we guide people on how to ensure that their regulatory obligations are being met and to make audits more efficient. And then we've created executive and board level interactive tabletop experiences where people can practice things that you would imagine if you were a board and needed to respond to a ransomware event. Right. What would be your responsibility in that? How would you manage that? How would you handle that? How can you practice that? You don't really get to practice that in the real world. You practice in a real life scenario. We're giving organizations, the executives and board members of organizations, the ability to practice those things. And so these equip kind of boards and leaders with the skills and knowledge to remain proactive. Sorry about that. You were going to say
Oh,
something.
no, you're fine. I was just going to mention it reminds me of the game day exercises that a lot of organizations would do just to make sure that they're ready for business continuity. You know, going through their incident response guide to make sure that they have all the appropriate stakeholders in place and keeping their documentation updated and just making sure that they're keeping people within their organization self-educated. So
Yeah, exactly. And what we've said is, let's take what people are already doing, let's add to that and find areas where we might have the time to invest and then make that easier for other people, right? So we have 15 board level and executive level interactive tabletop experiences at reInvent in December, for example. And that allows other executives with different backgrounds from across businesses to come together, sit in a safe space and go through a tabletop experience. And you can have a chief marketing officer and a CEO and a chief legal officer and a chief people officer and a CIO for all different types of businesses, all kind of debating and but together as a representative executive team or an executive board playing through a scenario where they're talking about the responsible usage of generative AI or responding to a third party supply chain incident, right? How would they play that incident, that type of thing. So that's the way we're trying to do this, and we just challenge people. We want to challenge people to practice, to refine, and then we even bring these to executive teams and to boards personally, individually, so they can practice this as a collective team.
Oh, that's amazing. For anyone who's attending AWS reInvent, are those sessions available in the course catalog or the session catalog?
Yep, they're available through the session catalog.
So. Oh, excellent. Well, I'll definitely have to stop by and say hello. That sounds wonderful. I'd love to learn more about this. I know that for security practitioners, they have games out there like Breaches and Backdoors. So it's wonderful to see this at the leadership level as well, just to kind of help people go through those scenarios. Well, just to kind of recap for the audience, we've learned a lot today. We took a look at how we can balance opportunity and cyber risk effectively so that we're driving innovation. Amazon's an expert at this, with the education that you offer through workshops and other learning channels. We also took a look at how cyber risk involves threats to modern technologies and how opportunity risk can really occur, when organizations want to make sure that they're focusing on cyber threats, but also make sure that they're not missing out on those potential growth opportunities. And we've also discussed how AWS and Cohesity are helping organizations innovate securely. Tyson, can you share any additional thoughts around potential cloud innovation trends that C-suites or boards should be aware of?
Yeah. There's a lot that technology is doing, and technology is moving very fast. I don't say don't pay attention to technology and don't invest in technology, but I think there is a podcast about every single technology that you can learn about and dive deep in, right? So I would say find a way to efficiently keep up to speed with trends, and it's not a quarterly thing. This is going to be a daily or a weekly thing, right? About those, what is changing and changing rapidly, but I think is under talked about. And so this is, why I want to bring this to the light is technology is important, but the how and why of technology is more important, right? So if all we had was a typewriter and somebody wanted to write the next great novel, helping somebody understand how that can help them accomplish that mission and that vision more efficiently and better is more important than the auto return and the QWERTY keyboard on the typewriter, I think personally, right? So boards and C-suites should recognize that core issues is balancing opportunity and cyber risks aren't purely technical, and they should not be afraid, right? The same things that they've learned about in the past and that we've been saying about being a responsible business, about handling data, a lot of those things are not changing, right? So returning to the basics is very important, right? Technologies like cloud and AI are transformative, but the success of the utilization of these, we believe, is dependent upon the cultivating a culture of trust, resilience, and adaptability, right? And this is trust across industries, right? That's important. So biggest takeaway, I think, for me would be, if I was any seed out there listening to this podcast, I would say, look at the softer side of technology and make sure you understand how to communicate the value of technology and then the opportunities behind that power that we wield in ways that don't just make it so you can understand it, but so others can understand it. And to take a human-centric approach that will build long-term sustainable growth by ensuring technology adoption aligns with the values of an organization and its vision. I think that is, that's the exclamation point that I personally would have as a biggest takeaway for, the end of 2024 into 2025. We see that as being very, very, very important in the equation.
Oh, that's great. This is all really good information. And Tyson, I want to thank you for your time today. For those of you that are interested in learning more about AWS's partnership with Cohesity, we'll be sure to provide a link in the comments for this episode. And if you're not an AWS customer yet, AWS is one of our cloud provider partners, and we work with them to simplify IT operations, enhance cyber resilience, and make sure that we're helping you with your data security goals. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel for more episodes on topics like data security, innovation, and risk management. This wraps up another episode of Cohesity Tech Insights. Thanks for watching, everyone.